Using your 3x3 inch card swatch that I gave you and an ultra fine point Sharpie pen or equivalent, we're going to begin with making descending marks on paper in the style of Kevin Townsend. So carefully doing a little dot and bringing your line all the way down the page. Maybe you move around the page a little bit, but you're continuously going in the same descending direction, a downward direction. To descend is to fall downward. You might decide to work your way around the page just a little bit, filling in any gaps that appear. It's totally fine to have your line go all the way down to the bottom of the page. It's also fine to have your line stop mid-page, and it's even okay to overlap lines. We're not looking for perfectionism here. We're looking for a way of meditating, zoning out, and just making marks on paper. This is just a warm-up. This is just an exercise in the style of Kevin Townsend, just making marks on paper and filling in any gaps. Only you can really decide when you're finished with this. But you'll want to be sure that you are covering the majority of the page, that you don't have big white gaps in your paper. So obviously this is a time lapse. I did not really make the marks that quickly, but I have done this demonstration over and over again, as you can see, and it's really fun when you pull them all together as one piece. They look pretty cool together. Using your next 3x3 inch swatch card and your ultra fine point Sharpie, we're going to do the flip side of this, the opposite of what we just did, which now we are taking the pen, making a little mark, and moving in an upward direction, also known as ascending. So ascending is, again, to move in an upward direction, and just like last time, we're filling in any gaps that we see. Lines don't have to be straight, lines can overlap. They can start in the middle of the page, at the top of the page, or near the bottom of the page. There's really no rules except to take your time and be pretty methodical and relaxed when you're making your marks. This is to just warm up your hands and build some confidence and just get some marks on paper, again in the style of Kevin Townsend. Really just making sure that you are filling in any of the white spaces, taking your time and trying to have it, the mark show up in one continuous sweep. And once again, this is sped up. I did not really make these marks this quickly. And I continuously find myself drawn to wanting to pull multiples of these together to make one large piece of art. So as you can see, I've done this demonstration so many times that I've accumulated several 3x3 inch swatches, and I just have so much fun pulling them together, or in class when we all make these and then we pull them together on the table and just make a giant collage. I want to maybe Mod Podge these and create a humongous work of art to hang on the wall. For your next 3x3 inch swatch card, again using your ultra fine point Sharpie, you're going to draw a straight line, as straight as possible, close to the left edge of the paper. And then you're going to continue with multiple lines next to each line, trying to create even spacing. As you can see, I'm not a perfectionist here, and mine are a little wobbly, but that's totally okay because there's nothing more beautiful than the human hand and its beautiful marks that it makes. We're not machines. So trying to make the marks really close together in a descending motion, a downward motion. If you can do it in one swoop, that's great. And again, just focusing on taking your time and filling the page. Now what I did there on purpose is I'm purposely bumping into that initial line there. Whoops, you know, I keep kind of like coming along the line and then whoops, I bump into it again, follow down, and oops, I keep falling, bumping right into that line there. I'm actually doing that intentionally. But if that happens unintentionally, it's going to make this more beautiful. It's just going to be more believable as well. So we're just kind of coming down and intentionally bumping. Now this is going to change the entire drawing from this point forward. It's going to almost look like folds in a curtain. So that's it, just continuing to proceed in one direction, taking your time, and trying to keep those lines an even thickness apart. And just like before, this is another sped up portion of the video. To do this drawing took me almost 15 minutes. Again, I really tried to take my time, but you know, gaps happen, and it's okay to go ahead and fill in some of the spaces where it doesn't seem like it's totally even. And as you're getting near the end of the drawing here, you can start to fill in some black space where you've sort of run out of room. So I couldn't complete my line here, so I just filled in some of the space. And now the fun part begins when you finish and you look at it, you step back and you rotate it and say, which way is up? Which way do I like the way it looks best? It's really fun. It changes so drastically the more you rotate it. And then if you've made multiples or your classmates have made some and you want to see, do these line up? Does it look like these maybe are part of the same drawing? And then as you pull more of them together and you line them up, it starts to make a complete work of art. Once again, just like we did before, collaging them together, either your own or paired up with a friend, or maybe there's a way to do this digitally. Collaborations happening. Do they make a single work of art when you step way back from them? Moving on to our final swatch. You're going to again take your ultra fine point Sharpie and make a line from one corner of the paper to the other corner of the paper, and it's totally up to you if you want to do a straight line, a slightly wiggly line, or a super wiggly line. Once you have your line laid down on your paper, I want you to put a series of dots throughout the line. Now, the number of dots is going to depend on your line. You sort of want to evenly space them out. Somewhere between 5 and 7 dots tends to work really well. Very carefully, just like we've practiced, you're going to work your way along the right side of the line, trying not to touch the initial line and making sure you have even spacing throughout your line. As you come to each dot, you're going to gently tap the dot. And I think all the swatches we've done leading up until this point is going to give you a bit more confidence in the marks that you're making on this final swatch. Making sure you stay parallel to the line, and when you come to the dot, gently tap it. And keep working your way along the rest of the line. The slower you go and the more careful you work, the more successful you're going to be. Once you've finished the line, you can go work on the left side of the line. Again, just creeping along your initial line, going along with the curve of it. So you really want to make sure if there's any wiggle in your line that you create the exact same wiggle on the line that's parallel. Snaking your way along the line. And you're going to continue to do this left, right, as you work along your initial line. At some point, you are going to run out of space, but don't panic. Carry on. Continue to make the line curves where they should be, even if that makes you go off of the page. So here I'm coming to my first edge, and I'm just carrying along and making sure that the width between my lines is consistent, even if it gives the illusion that the line is going off the page. I'm not panicking, I'm just following through and bringing it right up to the edge and off. You'll notice the space in between now starts to become smaller and a bit more manageable. It's a lot easier to have to make a shorter line and be consistent than a longer line and be consistent. When the space is so tiny, like that little tiny triangle in there, you can start to go ahead and fill in any little pockets that are just too small to carry on. So this little space here, it's just too tiny to continue my lines. So I continue them a little bit, and then I decide to fill in usually a little triangle that's in there. Again, I'm pulling this line real close to the edge, and it happens again where I just have this tiny little triangular spot and I'm filling it in. I would just do it on the small spots and areas that are thinner than the width between your lines. Again, I'm working my way out here, and you see that triangle, it's pretty big right now, so I'm gonna continue my lines, left, right, around the arc, left, right, and then I fill in just a little tiny triangle. Again, arc, you can fill in. And here I'm just in this little spot here, so I just fill in a little triangle, pull this up off the paper, fill in a little triangle. It starts to get a little easier, less space to work with. And then finishing out the piece. And we're into the last corner. Working your way around, keeping those lines evenly spaced apart, and then you can decide later where you want to just fill in the tiny little triangles. And there you have it. When I'm finished, I always like to rotate it a few times and look at it from different perspectives. It's really fun because it's hard to figure out where your initial line was that you started with. And then I pull up some friends to join it. See how they look together, just like we've done with the other ones. And I think what makes these successful is taking your time and really focusing on the width in between the lines and the consistency of that width.